Welcome to lecture number 10 in the banjo directory. We're going to talk today, and this is going to be a multi-part lesson, about Foggy Mountain Breakdown. Now, Foggy Mountain Breakdown is one of the only banjo tunes, when you're starting to play the banjo, that actually has its own roll. There might be a multitude of people who say to do it different ways and stuff, but if you watch Scruggs, he did it a very certain way. And it's the only tune I can think of when I'm teaching banjo that has a number of components in it that you'll use across any number of tunes. But you have to learn them. So what we're going to do is we're going to take those things apart. We're going to take apart the right hand especially, and sort of show you each tool that you need to play the whole tune. And those are the things that you should work on between now and the time that we put the tools all together to complete the tune as a performance piece. So yeah, let's take a look at the hands and see what they look like. So there's the bulk. That is the head of the tune, and we call it the Foggy Mountain Breakdown roll because it's unlike anything else. And if you look closely at the right hand, it's got some very unique characteristics. Okay, so here's the body, here's the lick as it looks while you're playing the tune. So you're starting with a index finger, and then the same two notes again with thumb and middle, and then a forward roll. And I figured the reason Scruggs did it this way is because the thumb drives the roll. When it comes down to hit that, you could theoretically play this like this, but it just doesn't have the same drive as reaching down for that B string. It's a more powerful stroke with a different tone, a plastic pick as opposed to metal. And you'll find all the time I tell you that the thumb drives banjo, and it does, especially in this case. So it's actually quite simple. Index middle, thumb middle, forward roll. Now if we suck back and reload here, and you can see what's happening in the left hand, it's a simple lick. It's a hammer-on, 2 to 3 on the B string. If you were actually starting the tune for real, you'd start with that bottom D string and then start the roll with the thumb. So slowly. Okay, so the next section we're going to look at, and you're going to notice something about this. In this first video on this tune, I'm not going to show you how to play the tune. I'm going to show you all the parts of it, because if you take the parts out of the tune, they're usable in 1,000 other tunes. So you're about to learn licks that you're going to use 1,000,000 times in your banjo playing career. So that's the first one, and that happens all the time. Like you use the Foggy Mountain roll all the time. in every intro, in every, it's just one of those licks that's around forever. And you can, I mean, I've heard people do entire ad-lib solos just based on that one roll. So the next thing we're going to learn, the next component of the tune that we're going to learn, and then the next lesson, we're going to put all this together. So we look at both hands. The next component we're going to look at is a forward roll with a pull-off. So it looks like this. Actually, we'll do it straight. That's the lick. Backwards, sorry. So that's the first part of a Foggy Mountain roll. And then a pull-off from 3 to 2 on the G string. Bottom string, top string, open G, and that G is a rest note. And you can see what's happening is the pull-off, the end of the pull-off, that 2 on the G, almost happens simultaneously with this bottom open D. This, again, is a lick that you're going to use a billion times. It's everywhere you play, this lick is going to occur. And notice how it's a forward roll. Forward roll, right? Okay, so there's the second component. Now the third one is super simple because it's a roll you already know or should know well. It's a forward reverse roll that's in E minor. So we're going to play an E minor chord, 2 and 2, top and bottom. Okay. So if you're playing Foggy Mountain Breakdown, you'd be going. A forward reverse roll inside an E minor chord, right? Starting with a hammer on the 2. One more. So it's used inside the tune like this. Very simple. It's just an E minor chord. It sounds foreign if you're not a banjo player. If you're just starting, it sounds foreign because it's in another chord besides G. All it is a forward reverse roll in E minor. And then the third component is another forward reverse roll with this fingering, 3 on the G, 2 on the bottom D. And there's that second component again. That pull off, bottom string, open G. So there's the lick. Forward reverse roll with that little pull off at the end. Now, if you're listening to banjo at all, you've heard that lick 8 billion times as well. It's one of the most common way to end a phrase, right? Invented by Scruggs, of course. It was the first thing I ever learned to play, I think, a lick on the banjo. That when I picked the banjo up the first time when I was like 6 or 7 years old, I automatically gravitated to that lick. And then the fifth component is called a pinch. And Scruggs use these all the time. And they're so simple. And they take up a couple of beats in the measure when the phrase of the tune's about to repeat. And they look like this. Middle thumb, pinch the outside strings, and then B, and another pinch. That's a really cool filler that you're going to use all the time. They call that a pinch. Okay, so that's all of it. That's the 5 components you need to play the tune. So let's look at both hands, and I'm going to play this slowly, and you see if you can pick out where all those components are. So we got the Foggy Mountain Roll. Second component. Third component. And then the same component used with a different fingering. That's it. That's the whole tune. It repeats from there. It's hard to do slow. Now, see, here's the things that are going to come in the second lesson, is all these other tissues, I call them. There's moments between licks and banjo music that are just tissue. They're just time killers to keep the melody in time. So the biggest one I just showed you was the pinch. And you'd use that at the end of anything, but the end of A, and the A side of the tune in this case would end like that. And it leads you into starting the tune over again at the A side, right? And there's no B side in this tune. There's just the 1A and a 2 or 3 variants, which we might even get into after this. But there's the 5 components that make up what you're going to play to actually get through the tune. And in the next video, I'm going to show you the other little tissues, which are almost always just forward rolls like this. And you already have those. So you have all these rolls already. So you're going to find out why they're so important, because they hold the melody together almost continually through every tune you play. Okay, so let's go back around to the front. So there's the components, and this is another way that I keep telling all my students, no matter what instrument you're playing, you should always learn in pieces. Take manageable bites of something and understand how each bite tastes before you go on to the rest of the pie. And that's what this will do. If you look at these components by themselves, and just practice that. And then your escape lick from that, the pull off with the forward roll, and then into E minor, forward reverse, and then another forward reverse with this blues fingering. And that ends the same way with the pull off. So you start to take all these components and pull them apart, and all of a sudden you see that there's not much to the tune. It's all just creating as good a time as you possibly can keep. That's what the magic of banjo is the reason Earl Scruggs was God is because his right hand. He had an incredible left hand as well, but his right hand was so perfect that he could have out-metronomed a metronome. He never lost time. He never stumbled. He never there was just such a constancy in what he was doing. And that's what you have to go for. And you do that by just practicing slowly. So I'll just give it to you one more time at a a sensible pace. But watch, and I by no means, probably once or twice in my life, have approached Scruggs' perfect timing, but it's not something that I or anybody else can do all the time. It really is something you need to practice, like daily, in order to get it good. So, but I'm going to try to play this as solid as I can for you, so you get an idea of how the rolls actually sound and how important timing is. So solid as we can get it. Part of the magic of what you're hearing has nothing to do with the melody or the sound. It's the timing that makes banjo playing. If you play unsure of yourself, even for a couple of notes, you lose the drive of the tune. And doing things like Scruggs would do a little push there on that E minor where he'd go, he'd make that, or he'd jump on it ahead of time, and that elevates the mood. The whole tempo goes, whoa! It's like goosing the band in the rear end. See how that is? Like, it doesn't just sit there. He's delivering it ahead of time, slightly ahead of time, and letting it ride. The note hits and goes, and it swells for a moment until he resumes this 16th beat insanity with his right hand. So that's what I want you to practice. And again, there's no tablature. You can get tablature for this online anywhere, but I want you to instead use your eyes and your ears to watch what's happening and take it as slowly as you want, and just practice the components apart from each other. Take them apart. Do the... and then do that again. And then the next lick. Because you're going to use that a billion times, that one. It ends every phrase you could ever want to end. It's used so often, it's just ridiculous. And some people stretch the G string, too. They stretch that up, which makes it even funkier. And then that's it. You learn those components. The next lesson, we're going to put them all together and actually play the tune. And be aware that besides the pinches, which you're again going to use a million times in your life, they're used all the time, and forward rolls. Forward rolls are so nice because they're 3 notes, and the one changes every time you go through it. So that's why they're used as fills so much, because they can fit anywhere. You can do them any length you want to do them to tie 2 more complicated rolls together. So we're getting into some serious science now about what the banjo does and how it all works. And if you've gone through the first 9 lessons, you should have more than enough in your encyclopedia to start to work on this. And so there you go. There's part 1 of Foggy Mountain Breakdown, and the next one we're gonna play her. And I'm probably gonna also talk to you about the variations that Scruggs uses, because there's 3 of them. And we'll go into those in the next lesson. So there you go. Practice hard. Keep your picks on. Keep your banjo by you while you're watching TV. When the commercials come on, pick the banjo up, drive your wife crazy, or your cat, or your dog, your budgie, whatever you get there with you. Or if there's nobody in the house, that's even better. That means you can play all the time, so it won't bother us all. And yeah, hopefully you're living next to a bagpipe player, because you can really aggravate them. So there you go. Keep picking. We'll see you in the next lesson.